Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from sunny St. Augustine, Florida. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday's study, exploration of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Conversation. Talking
Sharing
about
circle.
sharing circle, perhaps. Talking about Srimad Bhagavatam. Still here in sunny Florida. It was actually not sunny yesterday. It was a little cold. Wasn't expecting that. I was like, oh, it can actually get cold and cloudy here. But
maybe Florida's not so great.
Yeah, but it was great. I went for a long getting my steps back, trying to recover. This is what I'm supposed to be doing when I'm after surgery. I'm supposed to be recovering. So I'm just taking it easy.
Good.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm happy.
Good. Mara, how are you? Got any announcements first, Miss Mara?
Check in with everyone.
Miss Mara bronzed up yesterday. I don't know if you can tell.
We have Bhakti Recovery Group meetings. The men meet at noon and the women meet at 2. And there's an asana class for our Patreon members with Radha Dasi today at 10 a.m.
And local yokels from Florida, this Saturday evening, I'm doing a private public. It's private, means it's at somebody's home. It's like sort of like a potluck at somebody's home, but they invite like a lot of people over. So if you're in the area, I'm going to give a satsang, kirtan, talk, and prasad. So if you want to come, that's like 4 to 7 in Alachua. Come on down. I'm going to post it on my stories today. Oh, Linda's coming. All right. If you're coming, if you're on Zoom and you're coming, let us know. We'll look for you. We're going to do all the famous things you do in Alachua. Oh, Ananda Leela's coming. All right. We're going to go down the Itchituckney River. Ever do that, Kastuba?
No, I never did.
Oh, my God. You got to do this.
On a
long river, about 10 to 12 feet deep, crystal clear, sandy bottom, tropical trees growing, canopying over it.
Sounds wonderful.
It's breathtaking. And then Alachua is also famous for these springs. People come all year long to see these springs, like blue, beautiful, crystal clear springs coming out of the earth, and people bathe in them and they go into caves, and it's quite breathtaking, truthfully.
Do they have any kind of creatures in there?
Well, not in the springs, but I think in the Itchituckney, I saw a giant snake hanging from the trees once, and rumor has it
have teeth.
All snakes have teeth, but yes, they could also gum you to death, which is and
hey, where's the bright light of Vermont anyway? Where's
she's not here. Why are you looking for her?
Well, this is what I'm thinking about. She's the one that we.
Oh, I get it. We told her about. Oh, that was Bunky. We told Bunky there were cenotes in Mexico, and they were he's like, is there any animals in there? And I just said, oh, just these giant snakes. He's like, giant snakes. I said, yeah, but they have no teeth. He's like, oh, okay. But they just sort of gum you. Oh, I got to stop my fibbing.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, Ruggins, you ready to get into it today? We got an unusual nugget today.
Oh, yeah?
I think
Yes.
we've brought this up on the show before, but I think it's worthy of a nugget because it's such a revealing
Yeah.
piece of research.
Well, I think when people hear this, they start to. Okay, I'll tell you what I think
Well,
after I
first,
read
let's
it.
hear who it's from.
Oh, this is from the National Science Foundation.
Okay, and I want to tell you something about the
And
NSF.
what is that National Science Foundation? That
Because I
sounds
just
like
looked it
the
up.
Human Fund.
Because they're going to reveal some very poignant,
That's the word.
some like some crucial information about the mind, which we're all dealing with. And I was thinking, okay, well, what is the NSF? I mean, is it just some guy down in his basement? Like, what is?
I'm the NSF because basically we could all start our own organization and call it whatever
give
we
it a
want.
name. Sounds very official. But so I looked up. Here's the NSF. It's an independent agency of the United States government that supports.
Okay.
It supports fundamental research and education in all non-medical fields of science and engineering. It has a medical counterpart called the National Institute of Health. Okay. You know what its annual budget is?
Is that an annual budget?
Yeah.
No.
$8.3 billion.
What?
Yes. Right. The NSF funds approximately 25% of all federally supported basic research conducted by the United States colleges and universities.
Jeez.
So this is like serious research. What we're about to hear is not like just some guy winging it.
Some guy just speculating. All right.
Yeah.
So here's what they say. An average person has about 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day.
Not 12 thoughts, 12,000 thoughts.
12,000. 12. 12.
Some of us
have
have 12 thoughts
12.
in a day. One thought an hour.
Goes right from like, let's see, pasta. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. I have 4 thoughts and go on a rotation.
Okay, say that again.
All right, 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Just that is very interesting.
That alone is pretty interesting. I could stop there and be like, interesting.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the Bhagavatam, but there's more.
Okay.
Of those, 80% are negative thoughts.
That's brutal.
That's brutal. Like, what the hell? Why is this going on? This is unfair. She wronged me. What was she thinking? What was he thinking?
Or just like, why do I have to do this? Oh, I don't want to do this.
I don't want to do this.
Again. Oh, here we go again.
Yeah. Okay, 80%. So of those 80%, right?
I mean, I wonder how they categorize the negative thought, but
yeah, but I'm sure you could
still, whatever it is,
we can understand what negative means. So of those 80% are negative, and 95% are repetitive. So if you just say, why do I got to go to work today? That might be on repeat, like a skipped record again and again and again and again and again. Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, like if
sounds like Japa.
Yeah, you're meditating again and again and again, reinforcing, digging, just like on a hard drive on a computer. You kind of dig a groove into the hard drive. You're just digging that in deep. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to go
skip on a record. If anybody remembers vinyl, in the old days, you used to get a skip. So it used to be like, I love this like a ship bugger. I love this like a ship bugger. I love it. It would just be like, you'd have to like hit the table for the arm and the needle to move forward. You don't even remember that, Mara. You don't even remember records.
She does.
No, you don't.
She does.
Okay, so anyway, let's just finish this thought here.
Of those, 80%.
So 12,000 to 6. You have 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. 80% of those are negative. 95% are repetitive thoughts. If we repeat those negative thoughts, we think negative way more than we think positive thoughts.
I don't know if that was the NFS that said that last sentence. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't think that might be someone else, but that's
From
very,
wherever I
very
got it,
interesting.
yeah, they said that.
And I would say that we are in the business here of retraining those thoughts. We are in the we're in the business of retraining that repetition.
Yeah.
We catch ourselves with criticism. We catch ourselves with fault finding. We catch ourselves with taking offense, harboring resentment, and we're recreating ourselves with our thoughts.
I mean, first of all, just this, as you mentioned, like, okay, I got 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. I don't consciously choose, I'm going to think this now, I'm going to think this now, I'm going to think this now. At least not so much. So it means I'm getting pulled in 12,000 to 60,000 different directions in the course of a day.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting, right? I mean, mostly I'm getting pulled. To some degree, I'm directing it, but even when I think I'm directing it, I may be directing it according to the mind's more general direction that is dragging me in,
Sure. It's probably like it's probably like a
80%.
boulder rolling down a hill. You can't, you think you're controlling, but it's just like these loop patterns of thoughts and are just moving yourself forward.
Right.
You wake up that's why I like to wake up in the morning with positive affirmations, positive sounds, spiritual sounds, recalibrating, rededicating myself to Krishna, bhakti, spiritual path. Today I accept what you've given me. I'm looking forward to, things like that. What would you like from me, my Lord? Things like that. Yeah. Again, because who knows what happens at night? You're out of control. Crazy things are happening in the middle of the night, because then your thoughts are sort of really out of control. But when you wake up, you got to recalibrate. Get in the shower. I find getting in the shower immediately, it's sort of like it lets yesterday go and starts a new day. You can step out of your dreamlike state.
Yeah. In Ashtanga yoga, the Ashtanga yoga practice, the entire strategy for how to deal with the mind is to still it, right? It's like, okay, if it's moving 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day, I want to hold it for a lengthy period of time. I want to hold my thoughts and rivet them to one object, and hold it there steadily. And if that can be done, there's a certain type of healing, I guess, you could call it healing, right? But it's more than that, really. But it's, in other words, it's all of those thoughts are programming the mind, right? It's creating algorithms. It's all kinds of information that we're pondering in different ways again and again repetitively. And we're suffering because of it. And it's very difficult to break those algorithms. So they say, shut it down by holding it on. Don't allow it to move. Hold it. Maybe you go into the state of trance. I don't know how long they would go into a state of a trance. If you go into it for an hour, if you go into it for days, go into that samadhi. Tell me right now. I can tell you.
I go into trance a lot.
But the idea is that all of the programming within our mind, the false programming that's creating our attachments and our aversions. I need this to be happy. I won't be happy if this happens. All that kind of false information. The false information on the level of the ego. I am this body. I'm a man. I'm a woman. I am black. I'm white. I'm all these different things that we're not. All of that, when you shut down the mind, all of that false information, it's so subtle. It's hard to find a clear description of exactly how it works, but but all of that becomes meaningless. It has no more grip on you, by going into these states of samadhi, you overcome the programming within the mind. So, this is in Bhakti Yoga, it's a little different, right? We say, you know what, go ahead and think 60,000 thoughts in a day, but just get them all going in the right direction. And you can do that by making careful choices about how you spend your time, what you choose to consume through your senses, because all the senses are channels to the mind. The eyes are channel to the mind.
It probably, if I mean, I would love to see this. I would love to sneak a devotee, an advanced devotee, into the National Science Foundation and have them study their mind. Because once you start gearing all your minds towards seva, towards bhakti, it probably minimizes your thoughts. You know, you're a lot more
Simplifies.
directed. Or even anybody focused on, even a person who's focused on hate, it probably minimizes their thoughts to like less things, so they're more focused. But we're talking about like the results of that focus. So what happens when you bring it to Krishna? It naturally already stills. It probably has a physiological effect on the body. I could say, like,
Sure.
when I was going through my divorce, there was so much worry about finances. There was worry about my kids. How are they going to react to this? How are they going to be? What are they going to turn into because of this?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? How's this going to affect my working in the world? How's it going to affect my future? And it was like thousands and thousands of more thoughts that I never had. And I sort of like still had to go on with my life. So they were running underneath, you know what I mean? They were like running underneath my day-to-day talking. And then I would find myself like really paralyzed with some anxiety. And I remember talking to a friend. He's like, well, are you have anxiety? Do you have some? I said, no, everything's going fine. But they're running below the surface. So to the degree that we can actually really, I always use this word, goad our thoughts towards Krishna, towards seva. You get those results of like just stilling your mind in one sense, because I think the desires lessen and they just get focused to not just stillness, but a desire to give love, which I think is probably higher than stillness. It's a joy. It's a joy that comes from the heart. You know what I mean? But there must be a difference between stillness and desire to love.
There definitely is. I was just, as you were saying that, I was thinking, imagine if you could do an experiment, like you took photographs of people of the same age. You take the 60,000 thought people and take photographs of their face. And then you take the 12,000 thought people and you take photos of their face.
Yeah.
And examine them and see if the anxiety, you know what I'm saying? It's like, sometimes you can see that person's thinking way too much. Their mind is just like everywhere, and they're not settled, and it's stressful, you know. But I'd imagine like the real yogis, they're way below the 12,000 even, right? Like they may be like, the NSF may not have reached the caves of the Himalayas and found people that have taken their thoughts and directed them, you know, like, but you know, what to speak of the effect of social media and computers and internet and all of that, like what that does to our thoughts. I was, you know, not that I know anything about dating apps. I was thinking,
Kastuba on dating apps.
I think
I don't know anything either. I missed that whole thing.
I've been just trying to figure out a little bit about it, you know. I think
something like if you swipe left, that means they're attractive. I think something like, I think it means that. I haven't really.
No, there's a swipe thing involved.
There's a swipe thing involved.
So, you know, I think if we dug into this deeper, we'd find that dating apps would be a fascinating field of research to how technology is driving us insane. You know?
Oh, really? It's also making some great love connections.
It may eventually make a love connection, but you know, because they do statistics on it, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, let's go back in history. We're going off on a tangent here, but I think it's all related, and I think it's worth getting into, because we need to understand our situation, and that the situation that we're in is actually bizarre. It's actually unnatural, you know. So, imagine we go back 100 years, 200 years, whatever. How do you meet a girl? How do you settle down? And how does that environment affect your mind? You know, it's relatively simplified. You don't imagine if you go before photography, right? Even before there's photography.
Yeah.
Then the amount of, like, you know, if you want to get into the, you know, dating app kind of lingo, hot women you would see in your life, becomes
Stuba on hot women.
it goes down from let's just statistically, just mathematically, right? It's going to go down from whatever absurd number it is right now, right? Down to like a very small number.
The pool is what are we talking about here?
Well, listen
Yeah, I
to me.
understand that
I'm
the
saying-
less you see, the less agitated your mind is. Is that where
You're
you're
going to have
going
a
with
much
this?
less agitated mind, and
That's
so
like
when
living upstate New York.
well,
There's a
and
small
so when
pool of people. Look at Mara. She picked me. Like there's just a little pool up there. She's got like me, another guy. There's a horse. She's like, okay, Raghunath and a
I'll take
horse. Put
Raghunath.
him on a scale. I'll take him. She's got a very small pool to choose from.
So you know, you're when you go to look for a partner, you're not bewildered and confused with desires that are unrealistic and crazy and bizarre. You know what I'm saying? You have a different set of values.
You've never done this, but imagine going in. I've done this. You go into a restaurant and there's a menu that's like thick like a book, and you're like, yeah, Mara says, like Cheesecake Factory. I've never been to Cheesecake. They have a big menu, but it's sort of like you look at that menu and just like, I don't know, just can't you just pick it for me, miss?
Or what's that? Baskin Robbins or something like that.
Or 1,000 flavors.
I think
Yeah.
it's not 1,000, but it's less than.
But
that.
the point is, yeah, sometimes
but
we suffer from we suffer from too many choices.
Even too many choices is one thing, but what this does is creates desires and you don't even have the choice, because then when the guy goes on the dating app, right? They say statistically, it's like every guy on the dating app is looking for practically like 70% of those girls he'd be happy to be with, you know, or more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas the women are very choosy, right?
You guys will
It's like they're looking for, like, they're all looking at the same 1% of guys.
The women are?
Yeah. They're all.
Wonder if I would make it to that 1%.
Because the women don't need a dating app to get a date.
No, women don't.
They're trying to find some superior man, some like ideal man. The guys are trying to find any woman.
You think so?
Statistically, they find it like this. Yeah, they do.
Okay.
They study this thing. That's my point. Statistically, you can do this. So basically, you have tons of men trying to find, and they're getting rejected. Again, most of those guys on those dating apps are getting nothing but rejection.
Really?
Unless you're attractive, unless you're tall, unless you're making money, unless you're.
Roger Tompkins says, yes, I literally get 0 matches. Roger, come here.
No,
I'll date you, Roger.
And so if Roger or someone like Roger, if he were just like living on a farm 300 years ago, he wouldn't be experiencing this kind of, I'm getting rejected. I have no value. You know, even I hate women. Well, I'm a decent person. Why is there not one woman in this world that'll, you know, swipe whatever direction they're supposed to swipe, you know, on for me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's created a bizarre, it's created some kind of bizarre environment.
I didn't know that.
It's created a bizarre environment. It's like these are natural trends that exist without the dating app, but when you put it through the dating app, it gets intensified.
I didn't know that. It probably gives a lot of stress and anxiety.
And then suppose you're one of that 1% of men that all these women are looking for. Well, now you suddenly you're exposed to tons of women, tons of sex.
Yeah.
But even you're suffering because of that. Like, that's not healthy for anyone.
Right.
You know, it's not healthy.
Let's
for the
bring
women.
back
It's not
arranged
healthy
marriage
It's not healthy
Tuesday.
for the attractive people. It's not healthy for the unattractive
pick
people.
Your match.
It's just playing with everybody's mind and bizarre, and we are disturbed. Therefore, manda sumanda matyo, manda bhagya upadutaha. You know, we are, you know, misguided, you know, unlucky. Above all, always disturbed.
Always disturbed.
Yeah, and
all
the
these things,
making it worse.
all these things in the modern world fuel this verse. Manda samanta matayo manda bhagya hiupadrutaha. Unlucky, unfortunate, always disturbed. All the things that we think are going to take away our pain, except the wisdom of the sages dating app, which we would like to present to you right now, everybody. Okay, for mere $59 a month, you can find your spiritual soulmate.
But so now Bhagavatam, is telling us 5,000 years ago that in this age of Kali, this is where the Bhagavatam starts. It starts in the forest of Naimisharanya, and the sages of Naimisharanya are turning to Sutta Goswami and saying, we're concerned about the future when people are going to be, their minds are going to be always disturbed. Oh, what a negative thing to say. Well, you know what? The NSF in their $8 billion annual budget found that to be true. That we have 80% of our thoughts are negative and 95% of those thoughts are repetitive. We're stuck in channels of mental disturbance.
I'm curious if Mara has ever used a dating app. Oh, she paused.
Do you want the answer or no?
We're gonna ask
I've
questions.
never gone on I've had one. I've seen it before, but I've never gone on a date or talked to anybody on it.
You've signed up
because she's so
registered.
Selective.
You've got the confirmation email.
I don't even know if it works like that.
Okay,
but yeah, I've seen it before.
You've seen a dating app. What does that mean? You've seen it as you downloaded it. Did you?
I've never communicated with anybody via a dating app.
That's because women are so picky, you see?
Because you're picky.
She was like, no.
I'm gonna
No.
I have a friend who met somebody, their spouse on Hot or Not. That was a dating app. Hot or Not. It's
and I mean,
horrible.
They also
I guess it's not horrible. I guess probably a dating app is a good thing. It's sort of like the old world where you don't want to go to a bar. You just want to say, okay, this is what you're into. This is your hobbies. These are you're an outdoorsman. You're into business. You're serious about your career. You're interested in spirituality. It might be a good thing.
Beyond that, it's not just the men looking for these, incredibly shapely women and through these things and not finding them because their minds have been so completely disturbed by films and social media and all of that. But beyond that, the women have very unrealistic ideas about the man that they want too.
Yeah.
In other words, listen to me, Rona. Look at me.
Sorry,
I know the chat board is lighting up.
Okay.
Look at me in the eyes, Rona. Right there. Come on, right there. Yeah, come on.
I'm blocking the chat board. So
All right,
shut
here,
it down. Shut it down.
Present.
Okay. Because they'll do this like with women. It's a very simple kind of experiment. But you say, okay, let's see what you're looking for in a man. How tall do they have to be? Do they have to be taller than you? Yes. Okay. How about
that cuts me out of 60%
that's
of all
how
women.
The statistics work. Yeah. Then they say, how much money do they have to make? Okay, boom. Then and how attractive do they have to be? Is that important to you? Boom. And they'll go down a list like this.
Do they need a full head of hair?
Even things like that.
That's
Full head of
that's
hair.
Probably one.
Of course they need a full head of hair.
What would you have written, Mara, if that was one of the questions? Yes.
So what happens is in the end, when you go through that checklist and you crunch those numbers,
yeah,
it's like there's very few men left, and all the women are looking for those men, right? Yeah. So it's like
tall hair,
and so they're disturbed because they're not getting what they want because they're all competing for the same men. We are always disturbed because we have bizarre attachments that have been created by what we're consuming through our eyes and our ears, and it's hopeless. We think these things are good. Oh, I got this great new app. We suffer because of this.
I've got a message for the women out there. Okay. It's not about height or hair or a beautiful shapely beard. There's more to men than that.
Okay, you see, that was some resentment coming out there.
Yeah. After hearing all this stuff, I'm realizing.
But the resentment's a negative thought. We want to let go.
Now, this whole show has got me very angry.
Okay. All right. Now let's get into Bhagavatam because we're going to start to talk about the mind. Right. It's got me very angry.
Oh, gracious. That's all I had is hair and height.
I'll take a little bit of Road Rage's hair and height. Too bad you couldn't trade off, huh? Some people, you're too tall, Road Rage. Give me a little bit of your tall. I'll give you a little bit of bald.
Okay. Let's get into it, Rogue.
All right. I'm a little agitated now, but part of me feels like, man, I wonder what those apps were like. You know what I mean? I'm never going to go to those apps. Not at this point in my life. But
Let it go.
it's
Don't even
curious.
think about
It gets you a little
Well,
curious.
you want me to tell you? I'll tell you in a nutshell.
How do you know, Mr. Kastuba? You've been married
Because
for
I'm
25
observing
years.
it and thinking about it. Okay.
You're thinking about it. You're thinking about it. You're exploring it.
I'm analyzing it. Okay.
You're doing research on
But you said
dating apps.
You said
Okay.
you. Do you want to hear my thoughts on it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. I am sorry. Yes. It gives a facade of, oh my God, this is great. I don't need to go through all of this social awkwardness.
Yeah.
And
you see it
suddenly
online.
sex is going to open up and it's going to become easier. You know,
Yeah.
when actually what it delivers is deeper frustration. Deeper and deeper levels of frustration.
Okay. Yeah, it could.
That's what it is. Don't be fooled. It's a facade, right? It's a facade. I don't mean to. I mean, again, I don't know anything about.
I don't know. I would like to hear on the message board right now successful relationships with dating apps. You can put that on right now. Come on.
No, well, that's another thing. Like, I think some of these apps are more like just hookup apps, right? And then some of them are like
that is.
Thank
God that wasn't around when I was a kid.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that would have drove me to.
Well, not only that, like pornography was not so available when we were kids. Dating apps or hookup apps or whatever you want to call them weren't available when we were kids. You know, it's like
horrible.
It's a crazy, bizarre world that we're living in. And to have a peaceful mind, you better be focused on practicing yoga. We desperately need this more than ever.
We need it more than ever.
Otherwise, we're going to be caught in loops of negative thought, and they're just going to be playing again and again. 60,000 times a day, you want to have a negative thought? You know?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't want it, Kastuba. You brought this up.
What?
I wasn't thinking of dating apps until this morning.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready
to dive into the Bhagavatam?
I'm ready.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before we started the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmadatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. You know, another thing about dating apps.
I knew there was
the whole opening mantras, the Mangala auspicious mantras. I'm thinking about, like, what happens if you see a great looking guy who's crazy? The problem is there's some real crazy people out there, and sometimes they're good looking. Well, you got to be careful. It's like dating apps are like picking up hitchhikers.
Well, here's my point, Raghunath. You take that guy, like the great looking guy 300 years ago that's living on a farm, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all the girls in the neighborhood, you know, have their hopes and all that, and he's going to settle down with one of them. And boss, that's it. Today, he becomes the 1% on Tinder or whatever, and he goes crazy. You know, like he thinks all this sex is going to fulfill me, and actually he can't stop engaging and he's getting more and more depressed. You know,
that's not my point.
That's my point.
That's your point. I have a separate point.
Okay.
What if you, because, you know, I think a big thing of the old days was, hey, this is my friend Mara. I think you guys would be a good match when people you trust arrange it for you.
Yeah.
Like people are saying all over the message board, oh, no, I met my boyfriend here. No, I met my friends got married on. Yeah, guess what?
Yeah,
they could be crazy.
You
could be married to a crazy man. That stuff doesn't manifest right away.
And again, I think certain of those apps
Shite is like, maybe.
And were
You
those
don't
from
know,
the?
Tina. You don't know. You don't know where he's
Okay.
from.
All right, Bhagavatam, please now.
Okay, sorry. Narayanam
You
Namaskar.
already did that.
We did that already.
Reading from Canto 5, Chapter 11, Text 8.
Text 8.
What are we talking? What are we talking about today?
So we're talking about the mind. We're
Okay.
talking about the mind.
Okay. I mean, arranged marriages is almost like a dating app,
Okay.
right?
No, it's absolutely nothing like the dating app. That's the point.
No, it's not.
It's the
It's
polar
just
opposite.
like a dating app. You don't meet the person, you hear about them, you find their qualities, you do their charts, you see this might be a good match. I mean, there's good dating apps too. There's,
Okay. We're
you
gonna
know,
text
there's
8.
Christian dating apps, Jewish dating apps. I don't know why is there devotee dating apps?
There are. What is it? DevoteeMatch.com.
DevoteeMatch.com. Someone's going to get rich doing that. I don't know why I'm letting those coins slip through my fingers.
Because you're not a Vaishya.
It's like,
Because you're hopeless in business.
I'm okay being a Sudra. I enjoy it. Text 8. When the living entity's mind becomes absorbed in the sense gratification in the material world, been there, done that. It brings a
swipe.
swipe left, swipe right. It brings about his conditioned life and suffering within the material situation. Okay, I get it.
Knows all along.
However, when the mind becomes unattached to material enjoyment, like, I don't need it, I can go without it, it becomes the cause of liberation. Just like on the fast days, right? On the fast days of like Ekadasi, and you can be like, oh, it's Ekadasi today, I have to fast.
Negative thought, negative loop.
Fast. That's like a negative thought. Fasting is bad. And instead of seeing Ekadasi as a springboard towards my spiritual life, they say Ekadasi is like the mother of devotion.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it as the negative thing. Once you set that, yeah, I get to springboard towards Krishna today. This is going to be great. And then all of a sudden, engaging in a lot of eating and stuff like that, that becomes like secondary, and you feel like almost like liberated. But when you think, oh, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't eat this, frustrated. Oh, there's a string bean in that. Damn. Then you
But I'll eat it anyway.
When the flame in a lamp burns the wick improperly, the lamp is blackened. But when the lamp is filled with ghee and is burned properly, there is bright illumination. Similarly, the mind absorbed in material sense gratification causes suffering. When it's detached from material sense gratification, it brings about the original brightness of Krishna consciousness. That
Very
is nice.
interesting.
If that meditation is, how can I enjoy this? How can I enjoy that? How can I enjoy? It's overwhelming. It's like a kid in a candy store. It's the gateway to addiction. Any type of addiction, food addiction, candy addiction, eating Doritos addiction,
Yeah. So one could ask, how can the one mind be the cause of differing conditions? It can lead to bondage, or it can lead to liberation. And so he gives this analogy of we don't have these kind of lamps ourselves anymore, except like in temples, right? Where you have a wick that's lying in oil, right? And if that wick is old and burnt out, then it starts to send off smoke, right? Very little light and lots of smoke. But when you got a brand new wick and it's in there and it's nice and pure and clean, it gives brilliant illumination, right? So our mind can be the friend, it can be the enemy, but we have to be careful how we deal with it. We have to be conscious how we do. We have to choose. We're not taught this. Hey, when you're young, your mind goes through. Your mind is not you. We talked about this yesterday, and actually, Chapu shared it with me later in the day when we talked about that. This was from this woman named. She put it on Twitter. Her name is Megan K. Stack. And she said, at bedtime, the 8-year-old told me, I don't know if it's her 8-year-old child.
The
told
8-year-old.
that his teacher said, think of your mind like a pond full of fish, and each fish is a feeling. Try to be the pond, not the fish. And then she says, all I can say is in primary school, the primary school has significantly improved, because we're doing this. And so what if we were, what if we're walking through this world without any, for most of us, we're not going to get it from our parents. We're not going to get it in school. Most of us aren't taught to contemplate the idea that our mind is different than us, that we are not the mind, that the mind will go through loops, and you need to consciously choose how you want to program your mind. Think about that. Even think about that as the possibility. Like, perhaps our mind is separate from us, and it's something that we should consciously program. Even that idea is very foreign to most people, unless you get into something like yoga. And even if you try to get into yoga and you're thinking, I know that these ancient people had great ideas and spiritual ideas, and you go to a yoga studio, good chance you're not going to get it there as well.
Yeah. Who told me yesterday that somebody said, they were playing Limp Bizkit in my yoga class and they thought of me. I can't remember who texted me that. Oh, it was Professor Snooky. She was like, yeah. It's like, what? I'm going to yoga, listen to Limp Bizkit. Come on. Yes. All right, my friend. Shall we move on?
Yes, please.
Text 9. There are 5 working senses and 5 mundane knowledge acquiring senses. Didn't we do this? There's also the false ego. In this way, there are 11 items for the mind's functions.
And Raghunath has memorized them, and he will never forget them.
Nope, won't do it. O hero, the objects of the senses such as sound and touch, the organic activities such as evacuation, and the different types of bodies, society, friendship, and personality are considered by learned scholars the fields of activities for the functions of the mind.
Yeah.
Interesting. Sound, touch, form, taste, and smell are the objects of the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses. Speech, touch, movement, evacuation, and sexual intercourse are the objects of the working senses. Besides this, there is another conception by which one thinks. This is my body. This is my society. This is my family. This is my nation, and so forth. This 11th function of the mind is called the false ego. According to some philosophers, this is the 12th function, and its field of activity is the body.
Okay. So let's just talk about what's going on here for a second. Right? There's a breakdown going on here, right? Yeah. Imagine, like, here's an analogy for you, Raghunath. Okay, it's a new one. Right?
Ready?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So pods.
Imagine you were a brand new football coach. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm talking American football for our
American football for your Euros out there.
And so imagine someone said, here's 11 players, and you're going to face the team that's also going to have 11 players on the field. Take them and go. Okay, go. Lead this team. Direct them so that they can win this game, right? But you didn't know anything about American football. You didn't know what the different positions were. You didn't know what the different positions are supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're clueless, right? You're probably not going to perform very well. But if someone said, let's break this down. There's 11 players on that team, right? One of them is called a wide receiver. This guy's very fast, right? He can run down that field faster than most players, and they can throw the ball to him. And if he catches it down to the other end of the field, that's what you need to prevent, So recognize that this team has a very fast person, and that's dangerous. Now you're thinking, okay, I need to do something about that. I need to find the fastest person on my team and make sure that he stays with that person, right? Okay, what else? Well, there's this guy, the quarterback. He's kind of the center of the whole team right there. If you can disrupt this guy, you can be very successful. And here's the different ways that you can disrupt him. You can disrupt him with fast people. You can disrupt him with strong people, and then you began to understand all the different players on that team and how you have to respond to it. That's kind of what's happening here. It's saying we're all in this material world with no strategy, right? We don't know what we're doing here. Well, think about it. And then it breaks it down to these different elements. There are 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, right? That's what your body's made up of. That's what this world that you're moving through is made up of. Okay, each one of those elements has a sense object related to it. Earth has smell, water has taste, fire has form, air has touch, ether has sound, right? So, okay, so this is what I'm engaged. This is what I'm trying to enjoy. My body's been programmed to try to enjoy these things, and each through the senses of cognition: the nose, the tongue, the eyes, the skin, and the ears. Okay, so you're telling me that I'm moving through a world with certain equipment, focused on picking up certain sensations that come from certain elements. And right there, that's the 15 that they just mentioned. Then it says, oh, you had 5 more senses beyond that. You have the voice, you have the hands, you have the legs, you have the organs of generation, sexual organs, and you also have the organs of evacuation. Okay, now that's 20 elements that we just laid out. There's also the mind, which all those senses are directly connected to. Now you have 21 elements. And then this verse just threw in this fascinating idea that there's a 22nd element called the ahankara, called the false ego. Mm-hmm. And so just like a football team, they got this position player and they got that, and you have to think about this and you have to know how to respond to it. Otherwise you get destroyed. How did it say it? It said, he said, besides this, there's another conception by which, there's another element in all this, by which one thinks that this is my body, this is my society, this is my family, this is my nation. None of these things are true. But this force within nature called the ahankara, or the false ego, is influencing us to think this. This 11th function of the mind is called the false ego. Then it says some philosophers categorize this slightly different. Okay, that's not important in one sense. But it's giving us the lay of the land, right? It's giving us the understanding of what we're up against if we don't want our minds caught tragically in 60,000 negative thoughts per day.
Right.
We need to know this.
It's tragic, isn't it? It's because of the false, all this stuff that we're suffering with in the world right now. It's just due to the false ego. It's actually just, that's the medicine to figure this out. That this is all the false ego, all the stuff that we're claiming, we're fighting for. It's not even us anyway. We said this yesterday. Wouldn't it be a beautiful world if we could just accept me? I'm a pure spirit soul. I'm a little lost. I'm trying to get myself out of here. You're a pure spirit soul. You're a little lost. You're trying to make your way out of here. We're trying to figure out our best we can with what we have, knowledge we have, but we're pure spirit souls underneath everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, what you're saying around this perfectly aligns with this, because we just laid out 22 of the 24 material elements. This is called Sankhya, right? This is a type of yogic philosophy that it's a construct coming out of yoga philosophy that helps us understand who we are and what this world is. So it'll name 24. There's 2 more yet to be named. But the whole idea is that the 25th element is the self, right? The 25th element is me, the observer of all this, the person that's experiencing all this. I'm not this body made up of the senses, made up of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, with the ability to for smell and taste and all that. That's not me. And if that were me, my strategy for happiness would be find the things that satisfy those senses. But we do that and we suffer. So we have to focus in on this false ego, this ahankara, which is making us think that we are the body. And we have to directly counter it. We need a strategy that can defend ourselves against this influence, against this illusory influence. Otherwise, it will win, right? We need to learn to make it our friend rather than our enemy. We need to know exactly how to address it, and that's yoga. There are different ways to practice yoga, and Bhagavatam is going to say that ultimately, the most the one that gives complete satisfaction to the self will be bhakti yoga, because at your core, that 25th element, its nature is to love God. And until you get there, you haven't gone the whole way, you know.
Is there
Strategies.
love, Kostuma? Is there love?
Is there love? Yes, and you can find it on Tinder or whatever. Oh, Krishna.
All right. Takeaways. Miss Mara. Miss Mara
There must
had
be some interesting
cookies.
takeaways today.
No.
You have some interesting takeaways today, Vera?
I do.
I bet you do.
We're in the business of retraining our thoughts and recreating ourselves.
Okay, a little closer to the mic, Mary, here.
It's business.
Stop.
Say that again. That sounds like a good
We're
one.
in the business of retraining our thoughts and recreating ourselves.
Yeah.
It's business time.
Discovering ourselves.
Positive affirmations and spiritual sounds in the morning.
Okay.
Road rage knew it.
What's your positive affirmation, Raghu?
Yep.
What is your positive affirmation?
My positive affirmation today is I know no one is Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, whether he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is free to do everything and anything with me, for he's always my worshipable Lord, unconditionally.
Unconditionally.
Birth
Okay.
after birth.
That's
No,
quite
that's
a
a different one.
quite a deep and esoteric affirmation.
Yes.
Recalibrate the mind from false programming.
Okay.
Recalibrate the mind from false programming.
Goad the mind towards Krishna.
Goad.
Go
Date
ahead.
Krishna and Balaram. You don't like Krishna? Date his older brother. Krishna's not for you. Date his older brother. We got somebody for you.
Dating apps are fueling our disturbed minds.
They sure are.
Or bringing us a love connection. One or the other.
Dating apps are like picking up hitchhikers.
Yeah. You
Dangerous.
never know who's jumping in your back seat.
Okay.
Detach from sense gratification for the brightness of Krishna consciousness.
Okay. I like
Yeah,
that.
it's very pleasant.
Yeah. Consciously design your mind's programming.
We got to do it consciously, Raghunath.
Consciously design your mind's program. It's going to be programmed. How is it going to be programmed?
And
Mm.
swipe right for Krishna.
Oh, good.
Ooh.
Boom. I
Swipe
that.
right
That's a
for
teaching.
Krishna. That was a good one.
That's
Was that
the teaching we've
Chapu?
been looking for all
That is a
along.
good one. Swipe right for Krishna. I choose Krishna. I want to date Krishna. I want to fall in love with Krishna. I want to give my
What
heart to
happened? What do you
Krishna.
see when you swipe right? Like something.
Swipe right means I think you want to keep them in your file.
But when you swipe right, what do you see on the screen?
Their face comes up. Yeah.
Something to click on to communicate with them or something.
Why are you
Mara,
asking
you
Mara?
there?
She
Mara?
doesn't have the
You're
app.
the expert on dating apps over here.
Mara, you downloaded all the dating apps. Upstate New York daters, Columbia County dating apps. You're like, anybody in there that looks like George Clooney? There's like a horse.
Oh, you know what? I found another piece
Pig.
of information yesterday, Raghunath.
What's that? What do you
There's
got?
some company, I forget what it's called, but it's all about weddings.
Wedding apps.
It's like a company, they provide everything you need for the wedding dress and all this. What's it called?
Like Mara's.
They're
Huh?
called the Knot. K-N-O-T.
Say that again? I can't hear you.
The Knot.
It wasn't called the Knot. It was called something else. But it was a
Or
company
Wedding
that went,
Wire. There's a lot of those kind of companies.
well, there's a really big one.
Have you
And
been
it went
dreaming of your dream wedding, Mara?
No, I used to work in the wedding industry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Mary.
Catered hundreds of weddings.
But that company went bankrupt. It just filed for bankruptcy
Oh, wow.
Why? No one's getting married?
because marriage is like slowing down because people are so confused. It's like-
Marriage is slowing down?
It's so hard to figure the whole thing out. And they're also kind of dumbing down the weddings too. Like they're kind of like
Keeping them
dumb-
simple. You and me at the beach. Casual linen clothes. Holding pinkies. Using a Band-Aid as a ring.